my age or older, the word pivot probably reminds you of Ross Geller standing at a staircase holding a couch shouting, "Pivot!" But in startups, it's some of the most serious advice you would receive. An investor once told me something that changed my view on how a business is run. If you don't know when to pivot, your startup won't survive. Because being rigid doesn't make you strong, it makes you stubborn. He gave me the example of Wow Skin Science. They were an apple cider vinegar company. They started off as that. And they read a customer review which said that people have been adding the apple cider vinegar into shampoos to improve hair growth. That one observation changed everything for them. They pivoted into a personal care company that launched their own apple cider vinegar shampoos, and the business is now worth over $400 million. One review, one customer observation, one experiment changed everything. And that small shift cascaded into a multi-billion-dollar company. Because that's what a cascade is. Change is continuous. Change is interconnected. And sometimes a ripple can have an effect way larger than you expect. Had they clung to their original idea, they probably wouldn't have reached the scale that they did today. And that taught me three things. Pivoting isn't failure. Pivoting is responding to reality. And the founders that are successful aren't necessarily the smartest. They're the most adaptable. And this advice didn't just apply to business. It applies to other aspects of life too. It applies to emotions. The first time we actually pivot in life is when we graduate from school. We become an adult and we're told for the first time, now you decide who you want to be. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't pivot, so I broke. In class 12, this happy, bubbly girl suddenly changed. My life went from colorful to black and white. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and no one knew why. My bed became my best friend. I would pretend to sleep just to avoid talking to anyone. My tears became my constant companion. I would hide in the bathroom just to avoid doing for dinner. And my fear became debilitating. My biggest fear was getting separated from my cousin Ananya. We were basically like twins. Same age, same school, same class, every minute spent together. But she was brilliant, Ivy League bound, and I felt to be with her, I would have to be the same. But I was struggling. No matter how hard I tried and how much I studied, I couldn't get the marks. Later, we realized that was undiagnosed ADHD, but at that time, I internalized it as being less than. And what started with just my academics became about my looks, my personality, my self-worth, because that's how self-hate enters. Soon after that, the depression worsened, and so did the belief that nothing would ever change, that I would be stuck in this darkness forever. Because that's what loss of hope does, it makes you want to give up. Years later, I wrote a book on depression, and these were some of the words that best described what I was feeling. Here's my favorite description. It's like drowning in the sea. Everyone around you can swim, but nope, not me. Fighting the currents, getting exhausted day by day. How can I stop this? Is there any way? It's like being in a tunnel, but there's no light at the end. You realize over here your whole life you will spend. Not only that, there's sticky mud at your feet, making it hard to move forward, making you accept defeat. Or like you're on a long journey with rocks on your back, and the negativity in your mind is on the mode to attack. And because you're bent down low, all you keep seeing is the ground, making it feel hopeless even though there are good things around. But one day, something changed. Not dramatically, not magically. I didn't wake up healed, I just stood up. I didn't change my life that day, I just changed my posture. And that one physical change cascaded into a mental one. Suddenly, for the first time, I could see what was around me, and I realized something simple but life-altering. There are good things around me, and if the good things don't last forever, then maybe the bad days won't either. That theory of change, that thought saved my life. That no emotion, no phase, and no identity is permanent. And this did just help me survive survive depression. It helped me also build my business. When I started working on my company, I noticed something interesting. In business, we expect change. When a product fails, we say, the strategy failed. But when we fail, we say, I am the problem. We look at business with objectivity and ourselves with cruelty. No one teaches us that emotional seasons are as cyclic as market cycles. That theory of change, that nothing is permanent, became my biggest asset because it taught me not to get arrogant during good sales months, not to crumble under of online hate, not to look at one bad quarter as defining the company, and not to look at one bad phase as defining me. But here's the important thing. You can't just wait for the tide to turn. You don't just wait for sales to correct themselves. You test, you improve, you act. And same way, you can't just wait for hope to come. You have to create movement. You have to make the needle move. Sometimes the hardest pivots are non-strategic. They're actually personal. When I started my brand, I had a very clear dream. I was a full glam girl. Rainbow eyeshadow, cut crease, full drama, high pigment. If you had told 2021 Kieru that her best sellers would be a lip balm and lip oil, she might have been disappointed. She wanted to create the eyeshadow palette, but the market didn't want rainbow eyeshadow. They wanted minimal, effortless, skin kills and gloss. And that was hard for me to accept. Because it didn't just feel like I was changing a product. It kind of felt like I was changing myself. Was I diluting my dream? Was I changing my creativity? Was I becoming a sellout? And that's when I realized something important. Pivoting doesn't mean abandoning your vision. It just means translating it. The dream was never the eyeshadow. The dream was impact. From creating the palette I love to creating products loved by millions. And the results followed. The palette may be sold 50 units a month, while the lip balm sells one every minute. Thank God I didn't let ego hold the couch, because if I had clung onto that, my business would have died. Sometimes we don't resist change just because it's wrong. We resist it because it bruises our egos. And the most dangerous line in business and in life is, but this is who I am. Because who you are is allowed to change. Ross was yelling pivot because the couch wasn't fit. But he wasn't wrong. He was just holding it wrong. Sometimes life isn't blocking you. You're just holding the couch at the wrong angle. And just like that, a cascade doesn't resist gravity. It doesn't panic when it hits the rock. It redirects. That's what change really is. Not just one dramatic reinvention, but a series of redirections that lead to a transformation. One review, one posture shift, one product decision at a time. In business, we call it strategy. In nature, we call it physics. And in life, we call it growth. Thank you.